Protect your car with 3W Liners all-weather floor mats. Made from durable materials like TPE and rubber, our mats are designed to withstand rain, snow, and mud with deep grooves to trap dirt and liquids. For a custom fit and advanced protection, visit 3W Liners. That's the number 3, WLINERS.com today. At Acasis, innovation drives us. Since 2008, we've been creating cutting-edge technology products that make your life easier. With a focus on performance, design, and customer service, we're here to help you work smarter, not harder. Join us on our journey to simplify your world. Visit acasis.com today. That's ACASIS.com today.
Oh, all right. Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network. I'm Cam Stewart. It's Friday. Happy Friday to you. We're here live 5 days a week on YouTube and then available wherever you get your podcasts, talking nothing but Boston sports. And boy, do we have a treat for you today. We're going to talk a little Celtic City. I haven't talked enough about Celtic City so far, and Pete Souza has been getting on my ass about it. So we're going to talk with him in just a second. We will also go over who is the best coach in Boston sports right now. This is not, we don't have any long tenured coaches / managers, not the legends that I grew up with. So is the actual best coach in Boston a surprise to you? Plus, we will also have Zach Burke join us a little later on in the show as the fearless producer of the show, and we will give a definitive definition of what a dynasty is. We're getting a little out of our comfort zone on this Friday because we want it to be fun. So Pete Souza joins us on the Cam Show as I accidentally kicked him out right there. Pete!
Dude, it is my pleasure to be a guest on the best show that I listen to with consistency. By the way, I caught up with our boy Mosley yesterday. You would have loved it. I went out to Brazos Landing.
The Brazos Landing.
It was we're doing something right at Rogue Media because he refused to talk about my show. He was like, we're just going to play up your ESPN stuff, okay? I can't really. I'm like, no problem.
We're going to, under the guise of an ESPN guest.
I was like, all right, no problem, Matt.
So I'm bringing in Pete Souza because Pete knows I've watched every Celtic City episode. He's been into it, and he's like, you've got to talk about this. And I said, well, Pete, I'd love to have you on to talk about this. So first off, tell me, you're obviously a big Sixers guy, Philly guy, reformed big Sixers guy. But you love sports history. You have no shame in supporting your rivals through watching documentaries about them. So you love Simmons. So tell me, what's this been like for you? You've been into this as a non-Celtics fan?
I have been very into it. The first couple episodes, they were what they needed to be. A lot about the social issues in Boston, kind of almost uncomfortable to watch, but that was the hardest part. But there was a lot of celebration in those first two episodes as well. But then you get into after we go from black and white to color, I always say Chris Rock said this once, and it really applies to me. Like I'm a contemporary guy, dude. Like anything before the Jackson 5 is tough for me to get into. Okay. Certainly before the JFK assassination. That's kind of where it starts.
Well, that's still pretty well before your time.
It is, yeah.
It's 20 years before you're born.
I struggle with the 50s and 40s and 30s and so I just can't get with that. But that Celtics team with Bird, McHale, Parrish, I mean, even the teams with Cowens, right? And I didn't really know much about Tommy Heinsohn coaching the team. That stuff is amazing, dude. It's amazing.
One quick thing on the 70s, because it does get lost. You always talk about the 60s Celtics and then the 80s Celtics. They won 2 championships in 3 years in the 70s and had their best regular season team of all time in 73. And in 74, they beat Milwaukee in the finals. They beat Kareem in Game 7 in Milwaukee. And like that's never talked about. Like almost any other franchise, that would be the greatest win in their history, right? A championship round, Game 7. Yes, against the best player on the planet in his own barn, and they took him out. It's just crazy. So the 70s always gets forgotten. Dave Cowens, I mean, maybe the most underrated player in the history of the Celtics.
Simmons is going on record saying, by the way, that was the most disappointed he was. He couldn't get Cowens. And
which is weird. He's not like Bill Lee or anything. He's a talker. I'm surprised he couldn't get him.
My Charlotte roots. He coached the Charlotte Hornets. Mm-hmm. In their early years. Wasn't the first coach, but people in Charlotte loved him. He's a pretty awesome guy. Simmons said this too. He said there's so much of this stuff out there now that it's hard to convey to someone. Like, this is actually going to be the real deal.
Sure.
Like, you don't want to get left out. Robert Parrish said the only reason he did it was because Jackie McMullen appealed to him. And he said that's the only reason that he did the show was because of her. And you could tell he was delighted to have done it.
Yeah. And that's interesting specifically because they did get Larry Bird to do it.
Yeah.
Like the non-talker of all time. I mean,
I think that's Jackie Mack too, though.
I mean, maybe it is because you couldn't pay Larry Bird enough money to like come to Boston for a Celtics game. I know they did that signing, which they have in the documentary, which was kind of a big deal last year. They did like a Dick's Sporting Goods signing with the three of them. But I remember the guy went to my good friend in Dallas. We went to Game 4 of the finals with Robert Parrish was there. And there was a couple like Celtics floating around because they could have clinched the championship that night. And when they lost and it went back to Boston, my friend goes, "Do you think Larry will be back there for Game 5?" And I was like, 0 chance. Not a chance. Unless they were playing the game in French Lick, Indiana, there's 0% chance he goes. So,
which is why it was really cool. One of the things I thought about this though early on when I was, again, those first couple episodes, and then we got going, and I thought to myself, do we really need 10 episodes of this? And then I thought,
it's a fair point.
And then I thought on Tuesday, after I got caught up, yes, we do. Oh, yes, we do. You get into of course, the rivalries with my Sixers and the Celtics, just amazing. And then we get into some of the tragic stuff. The Len Bias, the Reggie Lewis. I had forgotten, that was kind of like my prime years. The Len Bias thing it was more, and they talk about it, it was more than a basketball star dying. It became a movement in America to shut down the use of drugs. And, you could say politically it was kind of held captive, right, and used for different intentions. But it was the biggest story for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I still don't think certain people there's people around the University of Maryland that will never get over that. You could say it ended Lefty Drizel's career.
In a way.
Yeah, and what it did to Boston was set him back a little bit, but it was in the midst of a huge run. So the immediate impact wasn't felt right as heavily on the court.
Yeah, but it would be like, and I was trying to think of a good sports example for this the other day. And this might be a little overblown because we don't know exactly what Len Bias would have been, but this would be like if the 49ers, while Joe Montana is still starting, Steve Young dies.
Yeah.
You have this perfect succession plan, but Steve Young couldn't play on the same field at the same time as Joe Montana like Len Bias could have. So I want, because I know you'll appreciate this, and it's crazy that I brought you on instead of my dad to talk about this. But so my dad went to Duke in the early 80s. And he saw all these pros in football and basketball during his time at Duke when these guys were in college. He saw Michael Jordan play live. He saw Ralph Sampson. He saw Sam Perkins. And he said, no doubt, the best player I've ever seen play live was Len Bias. He's like, I would have told you that in 1984. I would have told you that in 2000. I would have told you that today. Like, no doubt. And maybe he means college because I guess he saw Larry Bird play live too. But he was like the most dominant player I ever saw play live. The most like, this guy deserves to be on another plane than everyone else was not Michael Jordan. It was Len Bias, which that's what kind of keeps it in perspective for me as a Celtics fan who obviously never saw him play.
After this is clearly to piggyback on that. Villanova wins the championship in 85. They open up what was then called the DuPont Pavilion, where they still play today. Now it's just called the Pavilion because John DuPont murdered someone.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, but it was the DuPont Pavilion, and their first game was against Maryland, right? And Len Bias. And I was so young, I wasn't at the game. Family members were, but I wasn't there. But the game was on NBC, and Al McGuire was the color analyst. And I remember Len Bias was having a Len Bias night, just going off. And Al McGuire, he was being guarded by Mark Plansky. And Al McGuire was on one of his rants. He was like, "Mr. and Mrs. Plansky, it's not your son's fault. He's trying to cover the best basketball player in America." He kept going back to that. And it was just very clear that this guy wasn't just different. He was elite. And he was going to really change the NBA. I mean, that's where this was going.
And yeah, this is what I was thinking about too, of like, these things get overblown, years later, decades later. And especially when the person, you never saw the person kind of reach their full potential. I don't think the Len Bias narrative is that crazy. Like he was that good a prospect. And you watch the highlights now. This dude would dominate in the NBA today. Wouldn't even need the 3-point shot, man. Explosive, like kind of ahead of his time in a way.
And the only thing that could go before him, Brad Daugherty was taken.
Brad Daugherty, yeah, which is kind of
and the reason why is because Brad Daugherty was a 7-footer, and at that time, big guys were all the rage. You would mortgage
Cleveland?
your entire future for a 7-footer that could play.
Was that Cleveland?
Yeah, well, yes, it was. There was a deal behind it all. It was actually supposed to be Philadelphia. Then the Clippers were involved, and I think the Clippers took him because Philadelphia traded that pick, and the Clippers ended up taking. They made a trade with Cleveland, and Cleveland took him. Yeah,
gotcha.
Something like that. But the Lenny Bias thread, and as a kid growing up, it was the biggest cautionary tale.
It became a lesson.
Getting the Sports Illustrated Death of a Dream. It was really, really sad all around the country. It was really, really sad. It touched you wherever you were, whatever you were doing.
And, from a selfish Celtic standpoint, the less important part, it does kind of mark a change in the history of the franchise. Because to that point, like the Celtics, whether you agree that they make their own luck or not, were pretty lucky. They had all this good fortune happen to them, and most of that's because of Red. And then this falls apart, right? You have this, and then the bottom kind of falls out of the franchise a couple years later. And bad luck in and of itself that Larry Bird is just one of the greatest players of all time, and he's got the back of a 60-year-old man when he's 28. And so there's that, and then we get Reggie Lewis, and then to a lesser extent, the draft lottery and losing out on Tim Duncan and Patino and all that. Like, you go on like a 20-year run of crap after being the organization in sports, really.
And they do a good job illustrating
years.
In the doc how the 90s in Boston sports was a dark time.
It was awful. Ask McShay, man.
Yeah, and the Reggie Lewis thing, for me, it was like very impactful because and from a Boston sports side, right? Like, I knew how good Reggie Lewis was. I think if they overplayed anything in the doc, this was pretty interesting. I was like,
I'm going to agree with you here.
Slow down. Like with the Sherman Douglas, D. Brown, Reggie Lewis.
Yeah, like the hot team. Like it was like, no, they were fun. They were nice. No one expected them to win championships. And Reggie was a good player. Reggie was a very solid all-star caliber player.
Yeah.
But he's a lot more like Bradley Beal in terms of impact than he is Kevin Durant. Okay. Yes. Like Durant play style ahead of his time, with the lanky ball handling, shooting. Absolutely. But he was not the next Jordan. He was a good player.
And they built it up for us though, but they kind of, and they paid it off in the documentary with the tragedy, it's tough to put those two words together, but with that tragedy, and that's why they ramped it up, because even as a viewer, I was sort of dismissive of like, wait, this team wasn't that good. But I think the idea was these guys were super close, but I can tell you personally, the Reggie Lewis thing like impacted me because, that was a really tough story, and they do a good job in the doc talking about this for people to cover, because there were some dark clouds, pretty much everywhere you turned. I think Shaughnessy said it was the most difficult story he's ever covered.
Shaughnessy, who, by the way, is like, this is kind of an insight into journalism in general, is like the most cynical of all the Boston sports writers, right? And he's like, but I don't want to cover that. Like, this is someone you cover and they die. It's like, that's kind of the end of it. It's a tragedy. But now you have to dig in on it every single day, and who knows what and what, and that's what you have to do. It's kind of a shitty part of journalism.
And let's just say, I feel like, some of that smoke, there's truth to it, right? Like, in the late 80s, a lot of people are partying, doing blow. Maybe Reggie did it more than the next guy. We don't even know that, by the way. We don't even know.
And it's like, and now we have the hindsight of like, okay, so like, let's just play it out. Like, this is a guy who does blow at parties, 5-10 times a year. Like in 2025, you're like, okay, he's not an addict. He's not hurting people around him. Like, it's not the habit you want or, anything like that, but there's worse things in the world. Like, I think we now can look at it that way.
And if that drug use is combined with like what happened to me, I was my senior year in high school, a football player, had a scholarship, playing a lot of basketball, doing a lot of drugs, right? I was sick all the time for some reason. And I had this virus that was, I was battling, my body was contending with. The virus goes away. Your body is so accustomed to fighting the virus, it attacks parts of your organs, your heart, and it weakens the heart. And that's kind of the same thing that happened to Reggie Lewis. But Reggie had died like a year or two before this is all happening with me. I go to take a physical to play in a football all-star game. They're like, dude, there's something wrong with your heart. You have cardiomyopathy. It could have been caused two ways, by a virus or from drug use. And at the time, right, I wanted to keep using drugs. So I was like, oh, virus. It had to be the virus. But they wouldn't, because of guys like Hank Gathers and Reggie Lewis, this stuff was way more on the radar for doctors working in sports everywhere. Yeah. So you're getting a physical to play football. They're like, dude, this is what we have been literally made aware of. Your heart's beating funny. You can't play. And then it's like, oh, by the way, you're never going to play, because who's going to – Reggie Lewis's doctors were especially that one douchebag who said that he was okay. Yeah. Not only did that guy screw Reggie Lewis and his family up because they were seeking another opinion and that guy told him what they wanted to hear, but Reggie was open with him. I believe this, and said, yeah, I've used cocaine before. You're talking to a doctor, you're being totally open. So then when Reggie Lewis's wife sues this doctor, he is like, okay, well, here's everything that Reggie told me. And he told me, he had used drugs before. Yeah. And so it got really, really ugly. But you could say his death wasn't necessarily in vain, because people like me were held out of playing sports, like really held out, as opposed to, we'll see he's okay. We'll see what happens. It was like, no. You're not going to die. Yeah. We're not. So even if that's on the table at all, like a 1%, it's not happening. King McClure had the same thing. King got a defibrillator right before college started for him. Now, King wasn't using drugs, but he had cardiomyopathy.
Man, you have a very real kind of link to that. I was going to tell you the great life lesson that I got out of Reggie Lewis, but I'll tell you anyway. This is a great Bill Stewart lesson, which is going to sound way more callous than I think he means it to be. But like, telling the story, he would talk about how, the Celtics assembles this dream team of doctors, like the, 15 best heart doctors in the world, basically come together and are running every single test and everything on Reggie Lewis. And they all tell him the same thing, right? And they do this in the documentary. They all tell him the same thing. You can't play basketball anymore. And they go, Reggie and his wife go to seek another opinion, and they find a doctor who says, yep, it's a fainting condition. You can play basketball. And this was the lesson from Bill Stewart was, if you look hard enough, you're always going to find the answer you want, whether it's the right answer or not. And so it's, it sounds callous.
That upon you when that all went down?
Well, this was before I was born, but but like early in life, I was probably 10 when he tells me this, and it is something that I carry with me. It's a great lesson, and that I say it sounds more callous because you don't blame the Lewis family for looking for other opinions, but it's just kind of weighing that all into account, and he doesn't even make it to the next season. He's shooting around, he's playing a pickup game at Brandeis, and bam, it's over. He was
playing a pickup game, Cam. It sounds like he was just shooting baskets by himself. Like
it's
that's
just crazy, man.
And at the time, that's where the Celtics they were practicing, right?
Yeah. Just moved to Brandeis.
Yeah, just a bummer, a real. And to see they do a good job of, they humanize it because it's been a long time since you've heard someone that was close to him talk about it in the present. And D. Brown did a great job with that. By the way, how about D. Brown being held at gunpoint by officers or being after they thought he had robbed the bank?
Yeah. So I was going to say I'm one of the great surprises for me in the entire Celtic City documentary is how D. Brown talks about that. Right, because that was a big incident. I think he was only a rookie. He had just moved in there. So
you remember hearing about that?
Yeah, this is one of the premier stories that people use with racist Boston, and it's not a good look, right? He's just a guy going into the bank, and you hear the call. It's basically like, yeah, there's a black guy across the street here. He looks like the guy who robbed the bank or robbed our business or whatever it was. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's almost like a SWAT team's out there, and they've got a gun to his head. And it's just, what does he say? It takes someone being like, no, this guy plays for the Celtics.
Yeah.
And so Wellesley's a really rich suburb of Boston. And so that's not a great look, but the whole time he's like, yep. And that was a bad mark. I know there are people like this, but he's like, but I love Boston.
Yeah. I thought too.
And actions are louder than words. He doesn't live in Boston or anything like that. I don't know how often he goes back, but he was like, but I really liked Boston. I enjoyed my time in Boston. And he's talking with Xavier McDaniel. Yeah. And he's like, we loved hanging out in Boston. Like we thought we were making Boston cool. I don't know. I just
like he still likes hanging out wherever.
Yeah. And that's just a part you don't hear, and reasonably so for people who have gone through something like that in a city. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I was held at gunpoint in Waco, and I still like Waco, but
that's true.
But I was not being held down by the police at gunpoint. You know what I mean? That is a different story. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. And then they get to the part where Bill Russell finally comes back. And you don't know that that's what it's building up to, because we just kind of reset to all these racist stories about Bill Russell. I'm like, come on, we've been over this. We've been. He comes
so
back.
Often in life, and I don't have kids, right? But I've seen children will, as they grow into adults, the right kind of children can really change the way that their parents look at stuff. And his daughter did that for him, and it seemed like by her moving him towards forgiving, the city of Boston, I think it really helped him out as a human being.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It was great for the Celtics. It was great for the Red.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, you got to go. You got a big night tonight, Pete. So how have you rated it so far? One last thing. How have you rated it so far out of 10?
I give it an A-.
Okay. A- out of 10. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's really good. Out of 10, I give it a.
That's all right. I'll take an A-.
I give it out of 10. I give it an 8. The first couple episodes, I really, maybe it was the black and white. I did feel like, and coming out of a white guy's mouth, this sounds stupid, but I felt like it was a little too heavy on some of the political race related stuff.
Sure, I get that.
But it was probably necessary, and I think that it's always good for a guy that looks like me to watch that stuff and get a little uncomfortable. So it was probably exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah, and it probably is a little heavy, but that's just because we have heard so much of that before, rather than the 90s and the D Brown. There's not a lot on that. So I think, that's worth telling too. Pete Souza Show, ESPN, Pete Souza. He's got a big night tonight. We'll catch up with you next week, Pete.
I'm having an engagement party that I invited all the Rogue Media guys to, and I don't know that anybody's coming. Scotty might come. Zach's got a kid. Hamilton is going to I think a concert somewhere.
A punk show in some dance hall in backwoods, Texas, with his buddies. I have a good excuse, but I will be there in spirit.
Yeah, you're in Chicago. All right, we'll see you guys.
All right, we'll talk with Pete next week. Anyway, the Cam Show rolls on. We have got to talk about current times as much as we don't like to do it. We like bringing Pete on and talking history, but I've got to talk about some current times and really who is the best coach in Boston sports right now. The answer might not be what you think. That's next on the Cam Show.
We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors. This is Rogue Media Network.
At Fullwell, we bring together the expertise of registered dietitians, MDs, and OBGYNs to give you the best fertility support. Our research-backed bioavailable formulas are crafted with your health in mind, ensuring the highest quality and safety. From preconception to pregnancy and beyond, we exceed industry standards with independent testing for harmful contaminants. With our comprehensive practitioner directory, personalized care is always within reach. Fullwell, your trusted partner on your fertility journey. Visit us at fullwellfertility.com. Experience the perfect blend of exquisite craftsmanship and life-changing technology with Gevi. Every product is built with precision, featuring specialized parts that ensure durability, efficiency, and safety. We put every machine through 6,000 rigorous tests to guarantee long-lasting performance. With cutting-edge technology and a commitment to energy efficiency, Gevi makes your life easier, greener, and more convenient. Upgrade your everyday with Gevi. Visit us at gevi.com to discover more. That's gevi.com.
With San, owning iconic furniture no longer requires paying a premium. We use the finest materials like Italian top-grain leather, known for its durability and luxurious feel, and apply meticulous attention to detail in every piece we create. Our replicas are crafted with the same care and precision as the originals, but a price that makes them accessible. With over 15,000 satisfied customers worldwide, we've proven that high-quality furniture doesn't have to come with a high price tag. Explore our collection today at san.com.
At Covers & All, we've revolutionized protective solutions with cutting-edge, customizable covers, tarps, and curtains. Using advanced tech fabrics that are 100% waterproof, UV tear, and abrasion-resistant, we ensure lasting durability with hand-sewn double-stitch seams. Our commitment to quality, precision engineering, and customizable options is unmatched. With vertically integrated operations and express shipping, we deliver premier protection at affordable prices. Visit coversandall.com today for the perfect fit, guaranteed to last.
And now, back to our show.
Welcome back to the Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network. We are live on YouTube, just as we are every weekday, high noon Eastern time. Well, if you're watching live, we are live on YouTube. And then after that, we're available wherever you get your podcasts. On this Friday, we're changing it up a little bit on Fridays on the Cam Show. And I'm not saying we're not talking sports, but just a little bit more general. You know, we had Pete Souza on to talk Celtic City. We're going to talk now about the best Boston sports coaches. We're going to have Zach on in the next segment. We're going to talk about what actually makes a dynasty. Some of that stuff I can stick on the YouTube channel, and it can stick around for a while, okay? It's not old after a week is basically what I'm going for. And I saw this topic on, I don't know, one of the websites today. I don't know if it was one of the news outlets, about who could be the best Boston sports coach right now. Because when I was growing up, and really up until the last few years, that was never a question, right? Because A, it was Bill Belichick, and B, you had a bunch of guys who had been there for a while. So, you know, there was not, it was a debate that didn't have a ton of nuance to it, right? Like you go back to the heyday, 15 years ago, and you had Bill Belichick with, at that time, 3 championships. You had Terry Francona with 2 championships. You had Claude Julien as the all-time winningest Bruins coach with a championship. You have Doc Rivers with a championship with the Celtics. Like it was like, okay, whichever one you pick, Belichick's the clear choice, but everyone's in a good spot right now. But now, for the first time in a generation, we've really got like a couple of unproven coaches in this city, right? I mean, you've got an interim with the Bruins. You've got a first-year guy in Mike Vrabel with the Patriots. The guy before him was an absolute, failure. And I think the jury is still out on the Red Sox manager. And of course, Joe Mazzulla is pretty early on in his tenure as the Celtics coach. So that raises the question, who is the best Boston coach right now in 2025. And it's not as clear as some people might think. I'm going to exclude Joe Sacco. He's not going to make the list. Okay? He's not going to be number one anyway. He's an interim coach. He's just waiting on his pink slip any day now. Poor guy, sacrificial lamb. Okay? Then you've got Mike Vrabel. I think you can argue for Mike Vrabel because he's been an NFL coach before, obviously in year one of the Patriots. And this is a big task that he has at hand to turn around the Patriots organization. But then to me, it comes down to the real two. And that is Alex Cora and Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla is still early on in his tenure, only in year number 3, taking over in a very weird situation in terms of the coaching staff, but also taking over a roster with immense talent, a team that had just gone to the NBA Finals, and a team that was in their championship window, right? With the best executive in the league, and he has gotten to work at kind of a higher plane than a lot of other coaches that start in the NBA or any other sport. Alex Cora comes in, by the way, in a very similar situation in 2018. The Red Sox had just won back-to-back division titles. In fact, they had really identified the fact that it was their manager that held them back in 2017. They add JD Martinez. They have this unbelievable roster up and down the board, team-controlled guys, big money free agents and trades that had worked out tremendously. Obviously, Chris Sale, David Price, at that point, JD Martinez. You had a murderer's row on that team. Now, you do have to give Alex Cora some credit because the year before, sans JD Martinez, they won, 94 games. And the first year with Alex Cora and JD Martinez, they won 108 games and won the World Series and were the best team in the history of the Boston Red Sox. That's saying something. 125-year history of this team. None were better than 2018. But since then, Alex Cora's only gotten them to the playoff one time. He was suspended, obviously, for the whole COVID season of 2020. Gets them back to the ALCS in 2021. And there's also mixed in a couple of last-place finishes in there. Back-to-back last-place finishes. And an 81-81 season last year. And a team this year that looks much better on paper than 2024, but has not found the results. I think it's okay to be critical of Alex Cora at this point. I'm not saying the guy's a bum. I think you'd rather have him than a couple of other managers in the league, or a lot of other managers in the league. But let's not pretend like we were thinking of him the same way we were in 2018 when we were saying this guy is a top 3 or 4 manager in all of baseball. I don't think there's anything you can point to and say that he's a top 3 manager in baseball. I don't see anything at all, actually. I think he's a good manager. But I said this on the show last week. This team continues to have drama surrounding them. And for a guy who's the player manager, the players manager, so to speak, right? That guy who knows how to talk to the guys. He's been there. He's a great communicator and all that. Yet still, your franchise player goes into spring training thinking he's going to be the third baseman when you just went out and spent $40 million a year on a Gold Glove third baseman. Is that being a great communicator? How about being in the Netflix documentary and saying, yeah, with Tristan Casas, you put up with this stuff when he's hitting well, and then when he sucks, you get sick of it. He's still painting his nails, he's still sunbathing. He's having an awful season. So, which is it? Are you the player's manager or are you just a manager? Because it's just a manager, he's fine. He's good. He's not great. I don't think you can say that for a team that's not made the postseason any of the last 3 years. Has he had great investment from his general manager? No, not really. But we do see teams that don't have great investments that have great field managers, and they get over that hump. We see that in MLB. We see it in Minnesota. We see it in Tampa. Obviously not the last year or so in Tampa. We saw it with Kevin Cash getting them to a World Series. We saw Joe Madden get them to a World Series. And yet it took an absolutely stacked roster for Alex Cora to get there and win it. But Alex Cora got there and won it. They don't really care what your roster looks like when you've got a championship ring. Because I'll use that argument for Joe Mazzulla. Stacked roster. Absolutely. Comes in with a pretty cushy situation. But what people fail to realize is, as good as the Celtics roster was, look at the 2022 NBA Finals team, the team that lost to Golden State, and look at the team that won the title last year. Roster, largely the same. Drew Holiday in there instead of Marcus Smart, Kristaps Porzingis in there, but a completely different team in terms of play style. Completely different. With Ime Udoka, they were the best defensive team in the league. That's what turned them around. And Jason Tatum was like an all-defensive kind of player. He really was. And not that he's a bum defenseman or defensive player now. Defenseman. I'm trying to talk about hockey. But he was like all world that year. And him covering Durant was feeding families. And now they are the highest volume three-point shooting team of all time. The last, really the 3 years that Mazzulla's been there, they've been, 3 top 10 teams ever in terms of offensive efficiency. And it's now known as Mazzulla ball. So yeah, you can talk about all the great players that have lined his roster, but he's completely changed the play style of that team, and they have reached championship form. And by the way, they're one of the front runners to do it again. They've won 120 some odd regular season games the last 2 years, 170 whatever in Joe Mazzulla's time as the head coach in the regular season. But it's not just the roster is what I'm saying. 182-64 as the head coach of the Celtics is incredible for a guy who was second row Joe, was not even on the first row of assistants with Ime Udoka, and gets thrown in as the head coach in September. Who's the best coach in Boston sports right now? It's Joe Mazzulla. And even though he has the same number of championships as Alex Cora, I don't think it's particularly close right now. I really don't. And you want to say Alex Cora doesn't have a Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown? Okay. He does have Rafi Devers. Rafi Devers is a pretty damn good player in this league. I know we don't see it marketed a lot because it's Major League Baseball. But he's a pretty good player. And this year he's got him and Alex Bregman. And maybe not exactly apples to apples. But Joe Mazzulla completely changed the style of that team, molded the team to a new style that allowed to bring in guys like Kristaps Porzingis, like Drew Holiday, that guys that fit the style better than Marcus Smart did and Malcolm Brogdon did. Okay? Joe Mazzulla is the best coach in the Boston sports scene right now. I hope, just because of the sake of, the story and this guy, I hope Mike Vrabel can get there someday. Or whomever the Bruins get, whatever sucker the Bruins get next. Probably not ever going to be the hockey coach, just kind of the way it is. But Joe Mazzulla is the best coach in Boston right now. Jury is still out on Alex Cora, if we're being totally honest. If this team fails and they're, below 500 or at 500, I think you'll start to see people looking for a change. I sincerely believe that. That's a long way off, but if they fail this year, I would look in a different direction. If they're not making the playoffs, that's 2 playoff teams in 8 seasons? That's not good enough in this town. That's not good enough with this payroll, even if you were having slim pickings the last couple of years. Not good enough. Joe Mazzulla is not going to have that problem. Joe Mazzulla might have another championship ring by the end of this year. Might have more than Cora had in 8 years in year number 3. That's very realistic. So Joe Mazzulla is the best coach in Boston sports right now. Disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section below. Let me know how stupid I am or what other stats that you're bringing up to prove my point. Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. About 90% of you watching are not subscribed to the channel. Hit that subscribe button and get caught up with more Boston sports news and fun topics like this every weekday, live at high noon Eastern time, and then wherever you get your podcasts. So check out the other videos on the channel, and we will hear from our producer, Zach Burke, who keeps us on the air. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Coming up next, we'll hear from Zach a little bit more because we're going to talk about what is the definitive definition of a dynasty. That's next.
We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors. This is Rogue Media Network.
Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com. Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Cleanse your body of accumulated toxins and embark on your wellness journey at your own pace. At Global Healing, we provide premium supplements to help your body heal naturally. Combine that with OrganicHemp.com's top quality CBD for ultimate balance. Start your healing journey today at GlobalHealing.com and OrganicHemp.com. Unlock a world of convenience with Mully Box, your one-stop solution for personalized subscription boxes delivered right to your door. Each box is tailored to your taste. Experience the joy of surprises. Subscribe today at mullybox.com. That's MULLYBOX.com. At Tusane's, we understand that maintaining a healthy lifestyle can be challenging, especially in today's fast-paced world. That's why our mission is to make fitness accessible to everyone, anywhere. Committed to excellence, we adopt a user-centric approach guided by ergonomics and medical science. With a team of seasoned professionals in R&D, design, and manufacturing, we prioritize quality across our entire product line. Visit Tusanes.com today and start your journey to better health. That's TOUSAINS.com.
And now, back to our show.
Back here on the Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network. I'm your host, Cam Stewart, talking Boston sports 5 days a week, live on YouTube, high noon Eastern time, and then available wherever you get your podcasts. Zach Burke, if I may, bring you into this thing, into this fray. It's been a couple days, man.
It has been. I've been moving and shaking.
You've been doing everything to keep us on the air, though. So,
well, yeah, and in some instances, maybe hindering us too. But
yeah, well. And so I got inspired because we did that Pat Riley segment last Friday, and I really liked it. That was a ton of fun. So I'm like, why don't we do something like this? It doesn't have to be Boston related. It can be loosely related, just like Pat Riley, Boston hater, of course, dynasties. Boston has a couple. We can talk about something sports, and you and I can actually talk through it because you're not a Boston guy. So we got to bring you in when we can. And I don't blame you.
Not that I don't appreciate.
Right. I don't blame you.
I'm a big, I know that you and Pete obviously talk Celtic City in the first segment of the show today. I'm a big Celtics appreciator. And like, I was thinking, here's how my thought process works. Like the playoffs were, underway. I guess we're technically in the play-in games, but, I thought of you a little bit, and I don't know why, because it's not necessarily related, but the Rockets, the number 2 seed in the West, and are only the second team in NBA history since they started keeping track of this that's been a 2 seed that is an underdog in their first round matchup against the Warriors, which to me feels like a lot of
to be the Mavs,
which feels like
the 8. Then okay,
no, it was there was a series between the Suns and the Lakers in '92. Where I think the Lakers were the favorites and the Suns ended up winning still. But that's the last time. So it's the second time ever. And I just felt so much disrespect. And in a way, I was just like, yeah, I get it. Sure, the Warriors added Jimmy Butler. I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of taking this over, but it's time back to you.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like, the disrespect from the media just on just how much they don't know this team. And like how good of defensive Min Thompson is. And I'm just like sitting here thinking, and I'm like, you know who knows about this? Cam does. Cam knows, which is how much of the BS the Celtics have to deal with, especially after winning the title and not knowing. And I had that thought. And so then I was like, at least if anybody kind of knows how I get, it's Boston fans for a bit. So
Yeah, because throwing it back,
I can relate sometimes to a Boston basketball fan in a sense there.
Well, throwing it back to 2022 when Ime was coaching the Celtics, they had a similar situation. I don't know that they were the underdog, but they were the 2 seed. They were playing the 7th seed Brooklyn Nets, and I don't know that they were the definitive underdog, but a lot of people were like, "This is upset alert. Like this Celtics might not survive this." The Nets had obviously their big 3, and the Celtics swept them. So. Take that.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that the Rockets are winning the title or they're even going to make the Western Conference Championship. I think they lose to the Lakers in the next round. But this is a young. I'm being honest. Like
it's fine. It's fine.
It's LeBron. It's Luka. Like I want to be as big of a Rockets fan, but I'm also a realist. I'm not going to sit there and try to sell you a pile of shit and tell you that it's better than it is. So
if that does happen, by the way, real quick before we get into dynasties, if that does happen, the Lakers beat the Rockets and they're in the conference finals. Probably against Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
At that point, are you just rooting for a Lakers Celtics championship? Like, I don't know what that means to the greater NBA fan outside of those cities.
That's a fair point. I would say I would probably at that point. It depends because I don't know who else. Like, if it's not OKC, I have no clue who else it is. But I don't think it matters. I think the chance of it being OKC works because it's the best team out of the West then, and you're like, okay,
OKC versus Cleveland would be incredible.
It would be a fun series, but
for the NBA.
Exactly. I'm saying if you're not an NBA fan, are you excited about that?
No, I would kind of I would be disappointed because that means the Celtics are not in there, but I would almost troll watch it. Just be like, it would be a good series. Those would be really two really good teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But no casuals are going to watch that. All right. Dynasty.
All right. Because the NBA is full of them. Let's talk about this loaded word, Zach Burke. Okay. The word is dynasty. Mm-hmm. Everyone's got another definition of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know what kind of tipped me off to this the other night, but I just started thinking about we need to kind of set a parameter of what a dynasty is. I think everyone's got a different definition of what a dynasty is. So I want to just ask you, because I said this to you this morning. I didn't give you a ton of time to think about it, but what are the numbers that you think about to constitute a dynasty? I'm talking championships, years.
I would think that you need it's within a decade. I don't think it goes, and it might even be sometimes a smaller window than that.
Okay.
I'm going to say it at least needs to be a decade. So like when I think dynasty, and I'm for some reason right now I'm thinking football, I kind of associate it with decades too. I think of Cowboys, I think in 90s. Mm-hmm. I think of Patriots, I think of 2010s, things like I associate. So I think if you look at a time frame, it's you're dominant in that sport for that time. And I think you at least have to win 3 titles, at least 3.
Okay. I like that.
That's like the bare kind of minimum there.
I've always long thought 3 you have to have. And I put it as 3 in 7 or 8 years.
I think that's probably more accurate. Yeah.
Cause I think about this because some will say the 2000s Red Sox is a dynasty. They won 4 championships in 15 years, but they were really 4 totally different teams. They went through a lot, right? So 04 and 07 are pretty closely linked. But then you bottom out. Then you have a whole new core and you have a last place team. And then you have kind of this fluky 2013 championship. And then you finish in last place 2 more times before building it back up again. To me, that's not a dynasty. It's a hell of a run. It's a hell of a childhood, but that's not a dynasty.
Well, I'm writing this down because we might want to save it until later, but you brought up a great point when you said that too, it was 4 different teams. Does a dynasty have at least some of the same semblance of itself throughout, whether it be like a coach, whether it be like a main player, whether is there one kind of element that ties it all together? Absolutely.
And that's a good point because the Patriots have 10 years in between championships in the middle of this thing, right? They've got 3 and 4 and they get 3 and 5 and 10 years in between. They make 2 Super Bowls. They're in the mix every single year, right? They're one of the favorites every year. And they have Brady and Belichick that whole time, right? You look at the 04 team versus the 14 team. And there's literally two guys I think that carry over, and that's Brady and Wilfork, and that's it. And so, but it's the Brady Patriots, right? And I would even say, like, for the 49ers, right? They win a championship with Steve Young. They go to a couple NFC championship games. Like, they keep that run going with Steve Young rather than Joe Montana.
That's true.
But it's George Seifert who is the coach in the second one. But, you've still got Jerry Rice. You've got George Seifert was an assistant to Bill Walsh. So, like, I kind of put that all in the same category.
And it kind of, I feel like at least the dynasties I'm thinking of, it seems like there's, and it might change from sport to sport, but there's more turnover in something like football with the dynasties you think of, where there's not that same connection. Because when you think of like basketball, you're able to usually keep that core together longer to be able to make it work. So if you think of like the Bulls in the 90s, it's not just Jordan. Granted, it is obviously Jordan's Bulls, but it's having Phil Jackson for that whole time. It's having Scottie Pippen for that whole, like, you're able to have that whole core and nucleus. Sure, like bit players change. Like you get like a Luke Longley or a Tony Kukoc or a Ron Harper or a BJ Arm. Like, those pieces change, Bill Paxton, whatever. Yeah. But the main things kind of stay the same. And I think it's easier in a sport like basketball. You think of like a more recent one with like the Spurs, and Pop's always the same. It's Duncan, it's Ginobili, it's the foreign explosion, and Tim is what it is essentially there. And so it all has those same pieces, but like you said with the Patriots, which is something to kind of keep, it's just Brady and Wilfork. And in a game where so much changes, like more goes into it than that too. So you can't be, I don't know. It
does lead me to my next question, by the way.
Go ahead.
This leads me to my next question is, do we look at football differently? This was the big question I had in doing my notes on this, because football has shorter primes. It's got a lot of turnover, right? It's not easy to keep a core, like, health-wise, the same way it is for basketball or hockey or baseball. And there's even more parity in the NFL than any other league. So do we look at football differently in the parameters of a dynasty?
Yes. Okay. I think that you have to, in a way. I think that there's part of it with each sport that is a little nuanced to that sport. Like, there has to be, just because they're not all the same in a sense. But yet, as you brought up with the other sports, there's kind of a similarities. I think there's so many more moving pieces in football, just because of the sheer amount of roster sizes and everything else, that it changes it a bit. You know what I mean? Like, there's just it's such a big thing.
Because in the NFL, because in the NFL Network top 10 dynasties, they include the 70s Dolphins.
No.
Back-to-back Super Bowl winners.
No, because I will not count my very own Houston Rockets as a dynasty in the NBA. So no.
Broncos, Elway's Broncos, last two titles?
Not a dynasty. That's the thing. We talked, you need at least 3, not 2.
But now you're saying you don't look at it differently in the NFL. Because I agree with you, but it's because I'm not looking at it differently.
I think that you look at it differently as a whole, not necessarily the championship part of it. I think
so. 3 championships in the NFL is like 4.5 in the NBA. Something like that.
There's some probably weird, like exchange rate that I'd have to figure out. But
because nobody thinks of like the 2009-2010 Lakers as a dynasty.
No.
They're back-to-back champs. But they're not a dynasty. Like, that's not the one that won 3 in a row that also had Kobe was completely different. Same coach and had Kobe, but you take out a piece like Shaq, that's a different thing.
But then it depends on when you start.
And it's also
7 and 8 years though, because you could start it. It falls within that decade. That's 5 titles within a decade still.
So then let me pose it this way, because this might be putting egg on my own face. If we consider the Patriots a dynasty with 10 years in between and keeping the same coach and same star player, do you have to then tally on the 2 Lakers titles with the 09-10 ones with the 3-peat at the beginning of the decade? Do you have to lump that in together?
I don't think you have to, but I don't think that you can. If somebody wants to, you can't argue against it because it falls within the.
Well, of course you don't have to. No one's going to arrest you.
Yeah, nobody's gonna. But if I'm making my argument for it, then yeah, I'm considering it as part of the dynasty. If I'm arguing for the Lakers, I would include it.
Okay, I'd like to throw this one at you.
Okay.
because I'm gonna warn you ahead of time. It doesn't fit our parameters, but it's gonna make you think a little bit.
Okay, because I have some I want to get to too. Go ahead.
Okay, after this one, I'll let you run wild with it.
Well, no.
The last 10 years, the Houston Astros.
See, this kind of ties into what I wanted to talk about, because I don't know if baseball has any the same way since like
Go into this. Go ahead. Go into this.
So, not to say, okay, because this comes down to the ultimate argument is, do you call it a dynasty if it doesn't result in championships? If you're just at like an elite level the entire time and you get right to that doorstep year after year, but you never get the big one, does it still count as a dynasty?
Well, they didn't get the big one enough.
Yeah, sorry. They got it.
They did get it.
Twice.
Yeah, they got it twice.
So, but
and we're the elite team of the American League that whole time.
Then does it get to that number? Like, that's the thing, is if, let's say, I'm trying to think of a basketball team who's won here lately. All right. So like, let's say the Celtics, just for sake of argument of this, right? The Celtics go this year, lose to the Lakers, go back next year, win. And then they have another appearance, lose, Eastern Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals. This group winds up with 2 in like 3 appearances, right?
And they've already got a bunch of Eastern Conference Finals, like Tatum and Brown still already have a bunch.
Do you count that a dynasty still, since they've only won 2 titles?
I wouldn't. Again, I'm putting 3 in there, especially the NBA. Especially the NBA. Yeah.
But I think with
where there are so many dynasties and there is such a concentration of power. Yeah.
I think that you argue more that the Dodgers potentially have the chance to be a dynasty. They win one more title, and then they are. I think the Astros were, and it pains me to say nice things about them, but I think the Astros were a damn good team. Were probably the best team in the American League during that run, but it's not a dynasty because it only resulted in 2 titles.
Okay. You got something you want to throw out there?
No, that's what
I can't argue with you. It's just one of those that fits in between, right? It's like, I mean, it feels like a dynasty almost. Like living in it, it feels like it is, but it's not.
It's kind of like the argument we have there, and you have this with the dynasty of, you can have the Hall of Fame or you can have the Hall of really great.
Very good. Yep.
Very good. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing, is you can have
dynasties.
Wrong with that,
man. There's nothing wrong with that run you've just had.
Exactly.
Astros fans.
Yeah, no, I'm not. It was phenomenal, and you should talk about it and be proud of it. But when they talk about dynasties, I mean, the Yankees have something else to say about that. So like, that's what a dynasty in baseball looks like. Granted, it was a different
4 out of 5.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying,
in the
like
late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. Like that's what it looks like. I just think that when we're arguing it, I don't.
Are you throwing more at me? Are you doing like a yes no, or are we like how are we closing this out?
What I was gonna try to do is
no. Do what you were gonna do. I'm just asking.
No. I wanted to try to find some of those too, like what Wikipedia considers dynasties.
Okay, I love that. I didn't even check that.
And we'll throw that out. But I just thought, and we can go a little late. Pete always goes a little late. This is fun. That baseball, it seems to me, at least here lately, doesn't have as many, or I don't know. It seems like for there to be as much parity as there is, or not even that much parity. Like we talked about how the Astros had that run. There isn't a team in baseball until the Dodgers here recently that have been able to take advantage of. I take that back. The Giants probably.
I think there's one team that breaks the mold here. Because remember how I said about the Red Sox? You're good through most of that, but they also had to rebuild a few times. They had a couple last place finishes. Mm-hmm. The Giants are the weirdest one because they are a dynasty. That's 3 in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And the other 2 years they finished in last.
Years. Yeah.
The other 2 years they finished in last place, even years, so 10, 12, 14.
I'm sorry, I had it backwards, yeah.
Like, that's crazy, but that is a dynasty. Like, they don't have an all-time great player in there. It's not one of the big East Coast teams, so you don't like think about it as much in the media, but that is a dynasty.
It is.
It's weird. It breaks the mold, but also fits the mold. That's the weirdest one I think we can possibly go over.
No, I think you're right.
It is a dynasty.
It is. No, it counts. I would count the Giants. I think that's the last one we have until potentially the Dodgers here. All right, so I'm going to go through sports. Okay. We'll rapid fire to close this segment out then. Okay. And I'm just going to throw out, and I'll kind of give tidbits if we need to. Let's look at soccer real quick.
Okay.
MLS.
Yeah. Oh,
DC
God. I have no idea, man.
No, I'm going to tell you, DC
Okay.
United from 96 to 99, they had 3 MLS championships in 4 years.
Dynasty.
Yeah.
More
Also, they
many
have
teams in the league, but yes, dynasty.
Yeah. Also, they have the LA Galaxy from 09 to 2015 for 3 MLS championships in 4 years. Sure.
4 or
I guess
6?
It says 3 and 4, and then 2 supporter shields as first place team in the regular
Gotcha.
season.
It's like the President's Trophy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's dynasty.
Okay.
3.
Let's get into, here we go. Whereas Major League Baseball, Red Sox from 03 to 1918. 1903 to 1918. Not
Yeah.
2003.
Yes, the 1910s would you can just take away the 03 one. 12, 15, 16, 18, largely the same core. Yes, that's a dynasty.
Cardinals from 1942 to 1946 when they won 4 pennants and 3 World Series in a 5-year span. The Reds, the Big Red Machine from 70 to 76.
That's no. I'm going to say no. If I say the Astros are a no, then this one's a no.
I will agree with you.
Great
I will say
team.
that they're not. Mhm.
Great team, back-to-back championships, swept the playoffs in 76, but and they made obviously another World Series or 2 outside of that. But
What about
no?
Okay. Yeah, nope, I agree with you. What about the Oakland A's from that same time period?
Yeah,
71 to 75, where they won 3
World Series in a row.
74.
I think you'd have to say yes.
Yep.
It's not one of the most memorable ones of all time, but yes, 3 in a row.
The last 2 it has here, which we've already kind of talked about and agreed on, the Yankees from 96 to 03, and then it has the Giants from 2010 to 2014.
Yep, dynasties. You have the Yankees of 5 in a row. There's a bunch of Yankees ones on there.
It has the home
40s, 50s.
the Homestead Grays are also listed from 37 to 45.
Sure.
8 league titles in 9 seasons and 2 World Series titles.
That's pretty good. So yeah, go for it. Well, 2 World Series titles.
Yeah, I know. All right. Basketball.
Sounds a lot like the Astros.
All the ABA has is the Pacers from 69 to 75, but they won 5 ABA conference championships and one ABA
title?
championship.
No.
Oh, in 70, 72, and 73. Never mind. They worded that weird.
Okay,
that counts.
I was like, wait a minute. 1, no chance.
All right. Here's the basketball ones. I'm going to rapid fire them. You tell me if any of these sound off to you, okay?
Yeah.
The Minneapolis Lakers from 49 to 54. Damn. The LA Lakers 79 to 91.
Yes.
The Boston Celtics 79 to 88.
Yes.
The Bulls 90 to 98.
Of course.
The Spurs, it's a long time, but it says 99 to 2014.
Yeah.
Sometime within
5 and 15 years. And does it fit my 3 and 7? Yes, it does. So yeah.
It doesn't list the back 2 for the Lakers. It just has 2000 to 2004 for the Lakers again.
Yeah, 3 straight. That's a dynasty.
Golden State 2015 to 2022.
Of course.
That's the last one it
Absolutely.
has. WNBA lists the Comets from 97 to 2000, the Detroit Shock, and the Minnesota Lynx. All 3, it all fits in those.
I don't
they
know.
all fit. College-wise, what about there's 2 that could fit? The UCLA men's basketball.
Okay,
team,
this
64 to
brings
75.
up an interesting point here, Zach.
Mhm.
I do think we need to look at colleges differently.
Okay.
You can't keep the same core for 7 or 8 years, even in today's college sports. So I'm just saying we need to look at that a little. We're probably a little bit more liberal with it. Yes, UCLA is a dynasty.
But here's one that is confusing. It lists UConn, but it lists it from 99 until now.
Yes,
Which
see,
this
that is the exact program I was thinking of. Think of how much has gone on between UConn's championships. 6 in 25 years is incredible. That's a hell of a run. But dynasty just doesn't feel like the right word for it. It just doesn't feel like the right definition.
Well, if we look at it too and you break it up and we're like 3 and 7 years, 99 and 04,
Yep.
2011 and 2014.
2014. So that's 2 and 4 years, but with 2 different coaches.
2023, 2024. They're always in pairs and they're always close together. So it doesn't even fit the 3 in that span to count.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. I would say the
different.
same thing about Duke, by the way, which is a similar
Very
thing.
true.
91 to 2015, they win 5 championships, just like UConn. I just wouldn't call it a dynasty.
Yeah.
It's just not the right word for it.
No. Last ones that we'll do here. We'll just do the NFL.
Okay,
It has early Packers and Bears and Browns. We're not going to get to it.
Packers
until
a
the NFL.
tough one. Yeah.
We're not going to do it till the NFL started. So the Packers from 60 to 67. It's 2 Super Bowls.
It's 2 Super Bowls, but a couple NFL championships. So I will say yes.
All right. Steelers 72-79.
Yeah, absolutely.
Niners from 81 to 94.
Yeah.
Cowboys
I'm
91.
gonna say
96.
yes for all of these. Yeah, that
know.
one's kind of the minimum. Yep, 3 and 4, but that's
Patriots 2001 to 2019.
yeah. Yes.
So all 19 years of that. Just
yes. All of it. Man.
And then it does have the Chiefs currently listed,
Which are also 3 and 5, right?
Yep.
Yeah. 3 and 6.
So yeah, I think, and then we get to NCAA, which we talked about. That's going to be different. Are there any in hockey? I guess.
Yeah. Yes. In my lifetime, I think you have 2.
They don't have
the
them listed here,
Blackhawks,
so.
3 and 6 years, right? Yeah. The Penguins 3 and 8 years. I'm going to include that. I am going to include that, even though there's a lot in between. The Red Wings did 3 and 6 years.
Were
97 to 02. They won, and that they made the playoffs 25 straight years. They were always in the mix. The other ones would be the Oilers of the 80s, would be a dynasty. Yeah. The Bruins of the 70s would not be a dynasty. They won 2 and 3 years, and they were the best team in hockey for 5 or 6 years there, but they won 2.
Yeah.
And that doesn't count. The late 70s Canadiens, yes. I guess technically the Islanders 4 in a row. I mean, technically, yes, it is, but it's just funny that they haven't had no championship pedigree since. They've not even really come close since then. And then you get back to like the original 6, so there's a bunch of them, right? The Red Wings have their run. The Leafs have their run. Yeah. The Canadiens have several. So, yeah.
So then I guess just to put a bow on this, the
Devils, 3 and 9 years.
It's not bad. Way to go, New Jersey.
I don't know. I guess
something decent that happened for you.
Yeah.
So it's at least 3 titles.
Yep.
Usually about 7 to 8 year span.
Yep.
It doesn't usually it has some semblance of the same core, not necessarily always coach, player, front office, something. And colleges count different because you're exchanging cores out so much, and coaches
to the point where I don't even know if you can use that term for college.
No, you're right.
There's only so few that I would even think yes, like UCLA basketball, Nick Saban's Alabama. Well,
but in that defense, I mean, what is the career mode called in NCAA football?
I guess that's
dynasty mode.
That's the argument. We have got, I think, less questions than answers, which is good. I think we got more answers here. I think we have laid out the parameters. 3 and 7 or 8 years with the same semblance of the core. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate your help on this one.
Thank you.
Guys, just like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to do something like this every Friday now, but we're here every weekday live at high noon Eastern time on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts. We got to go. Have a good weekend. This has been, and on Monday it will also be, Happy Easter to you, The Cam Show.
Transform your workspace with Hanomi Ergonomics. From adjustable chairs to standing desks, we provide solutions for comfort and productivity, whether at home or in the office. Improve your posture, reduce strain, and work smarter. Visit us at hanomi.co today. That's HINOMI.co today. Experience the future of secure private cloud storage with Internix. Protect your files with end-to-end encryption, ensuring your data stays private and accessible only to you. Enjoy seamless, fast storage without compromising security. Visit internx.com today and take control of your digital life. That's INTERNXT.com today. your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com. Tusains, we understand that maintaining a healthy lifestyle can be challenging, especially in today's fast-paced world. That's why our mission is to make fitness accessible to everyone, anywhere. Committed to excellence, we adopt a user-centric approach guided by ergonomics and medical science. With a team of seasoned professionals in R&D, design, and manufacturing, we prioritize quality across our entire product line. Visit Tusains.com today and start your journey to better health. That's TOUSAINS.com.